In our last episode, we talked about buying houses in different places around the country, and we didn't know which one we're going to buy. Well, this episode, we're going to be talking about where we did end up buying a house. And we're going to be outside and watching Gerry do a little of his XJ money pit car so you can all see his efforts. And as usual, this is Iramis and Gerry, and we're talking about finance, early retirement, and life. As a friendly reminder, this is the XJ. It currently has no wheels. That one that's there is.
Got 2 wheels.
What do you think about this XJ, Gerry?
It's a love-hate relationship.
Yeah. I also want to point out that this is the loving things a wife does. Holding on to this flashlight while the husband cocks.
So, after reviewing all of our options, we decided to choose none of them. And we decided to start looking at Puerto Rico because we're down there all the time.
4.5 years of looking and 4.5 years of saving, we ended up buying a house in Puerto Rico. What do you think about the process of dealing with the brokers in Puerto Rico and looking at houses in Puerto Rico?
Oh my God. It's totally different than in the United States. They don't have the MLS listing, and it's the opposite of what you do here. Normally you can go look at a house everybody can look at the house. The problem is you have to go to a realtor down there, and the realtor has all the houses. So you can't just go online and find stuff. So you have to go to like 50 different realtors and look for 50 different houses.
In the regular world, you find a house and you buy it. Great. Not in Puerto Rico. In Puerto Rico, although it's the United States, it's a completely different system. It doesn't matter that it is the United States, that you are U.S. citizens, that everyone in Puerto Rico is U.S. citizens. It's like the banking system hasn't caught up. And yes, they might have some stuff digitally, but the rest of the stuff is by hand. Like physically, you have to send faxes. We had to figure out how to send the fax. I hadn't sent the fax in over 10 years. Then after that, you have to figure out how to get your money from your bank down to Puerto Rico bank. And by the way, we needed to open up a brand new bank account down in Puerto Rico. It doesn't connect to our credit union here. So you can just imagine the frustration level, especially when you're trying to put in a deposit of, let's say, $40,000 to hold the house. And when the funds do not clear, when the lawyers say they're going to clear, you're going to lose your mind. Here in the United States, we have buyers, brokers, and sellers, brokers, agents, right? Not in Puerto Rico. You have one. You deal with one. For whatever reason, we ended up dealing with 2. We're hopefully never going to have to do that again, but we did. And it worked out at the end. But somewhere in between buying the house and putting the deposit in and moving into the house, we had to get a lawyer and potentially get the house inspected. Inspection is something that most people accept. In Puerto Rico, you don't accept it. They don't care whether you inspect the property or not inspect the property. It's at your own risk.
So we found a bilingual inspector and went through all the documents. There are a couple things that in Massachusetts or the United States we would normally have the homeowner actually fix, like a roof or a water heater not working or something like that. But in Puerto Rico, they just tell you to pound sand. They're not going to pay for it. So lesson learned there.
For closing, you physically have to be there. You need to go and visit the actual lawyer's office, and we were not going to be available due to work. So we had to sign a power of attorney over to my mother. My mother was able to go. And of course, that same day that the funds were supposed to be turned over to the brokerage account, the funds didn't go through. So poor Gerry's on the phone. He's talking to our bank, trying to connect to their bank. And it seems like our banks still are not connecting. They don't accept that Puerto Rico is actually a domestic transfer. And I think it's important for everyone that's trying to do this. You need to get these things ahead of time. You need to understand what the fees are going to be and how the banks are actually going to connect to each other. It is a domestic transfer, no matter how many times they try to tell you that it's not. So once the code is put in and they do the transfer, you're able to close on the property. The other thing to note is that when you close on the property, you not only just have to go visit the bank or the lawyers, you have to physically go to the property. You have to walk the property to make sure that what you're buying is exactly as it's shown and what you saw the last time you were at the property. So it was my mom and lawyers, and my mom called us and said, hey, you have a house. And we're like, woo, we have a house in Puerto Rico.
So now we have a house. Now we have to fix all those little things that the seller didn't want to fix. So I was like, great, no big deal. I fixed my house. The difference is in New England, it's wood construction. In Puerto Rico, it's concrete construction. And none of my tools will cut through concrete. So there's a lot of learning and researching I had to do to understand the differences for building construction.
One thing is having a second home. The other thing is having a second home that is not a place that you can drive to, that you have to fly to. So we had to fly 4 hours to get there, get in the car, drive to the house. And every single time anything broke, we had to go to Home Depot or the local store. So the language barrier there was really interesting. But Gerry, of course, learned how to be an incredible Spanish speaker. It only took him a handful of months. The other thing to note is we ended up with having 2 of everything. We would go out and say, oh, let's fix this thing. And then we'd say, oh, I have this tool. And he'd say, nope, that tool is not here. That tool is back in Massachusetts.
Buying a house with a pool, I thought it'd be great. Then you have to actually maintain it. The chemicals, the cleaning, the pump purging, oh my God, the filter cleaning. I don't know if I want a pool anymore. One of the things to look for in buying a house in the Caribbean is the hurricane preparedness. Make sure that there's a generator that actually works, hurricane proof windows. Are you in the tsunami zone? If so, understand the evacuation routes.
So I have a husband that's completely terrified of tsunamis or the fear of the tsunami coming to get him. And this house happened to be 99 feet above sea level. Terrified him every moment. But we managed it. And another thing to note about getting a house in the Caribbean is the fact that the maintenance and the grass cutting is constant. You're having a plenitude of sun and water by rain, and the grass grows. It grows all the time. And when we're talking about grass growing, this is like a field, like a forest. The forest comes up, and one day you have no grass, and the next day you have a forest. And you have to keep up with it. So if you're trying to have maintenance come in and you think it's going to happen every couple of months, nope, it's definitely every month. The other thing to note is the house will need to be power washed. It needs to be power washed all the time. Sahara sands come every year, and they've been coming in every year for several years, but unfortunately, they're very strong these days. When Sahara sands come, they bring red dust. It's a red sand, and it's this tiny, tiny, tiny little particles that no matter how much you try to close the house, close the windows, close the shutters, close everything, it will cover your house inside and out. So you will spend several days cleaning the inside of the house, and you will spend several hours cleaning and power washing for weeks to get this sand out of the pool. Washing screens and carports became our monthly excitement.
During the Sahara sand season, it's crazy. You get all this red dust, like just stuck to the windows. So you would, when everything was done, you would just take them all out, put them in the garage, soap them all up with brushes and clean them all off, and then hose them all down, and then you have to let them dry. It's just an ordeal. And we had, I think, 32 windows. So just imagine how long that would take.
And we're not complaining. We're really just telling you the things that happen when you do decide to buy a house in the Caribbean. I hope that you come back and see some of our follow-up conversation on Puerto Rico and how we spent COVID down there, and talk about the rest of our life and how we can help you really make changes to your life. That's what this channel is about. Really thinking about life differently and making a plan so that you can be happy in the future, and understanding that you don't have to do it the traditional way, that there are other choices out there, and just thinking a little bit ahead of time, you can make a change.
You got it. Happy savings.